Hello, this is Shan Chandrasekar welcoming you to another delightful part of our programming. As a mark of our tribute to 100 years of Indian cinema, we are delighted to bring you an outstanding artist, a star who has become extremely popular all over the world, none other than your favorite, Emraan Hashmi.
जिंदगी हो तो स्मगलर जैसी, सारी दुनिया राख की तरह नीचे। दिल जिद पे अड़ा है। बहुत गुनाह किए हैं मैंने। सवा पाने का बस एक ही मौका ही है। इश्क सूफियाना मेरा इश्क सूफियाना।
मुझे किस करने की कोशिश कर रहे हो?
ये तो मेरी स्पेशलिटी है।
Emraan, what a pleasure.
Shan, thank you so much for that great introduction.
Well,
thank you.
It's great to see you, and a hearty congratulations to you, Emraan.
Pleasure.
Because in the last 10 years, my God, you've done an outstanding job in a variety of roles.
Yes, it's been a great journey for the past 10 years. For a guy who never wanted to get into the movies, had never dreamt about it, it's been quite a journey. It was quite a U-turn through my college days to becoming an actor, and very surreal. Giving an interview here, acting in movies, and just happened by chance, and just very glad that now cinema films have become kind of a passion for me. I'm very passionate about films.
You know, you started in the industry as an assistant director.
Yes.
And then, you know, Footpath was your first
That's right.
successful feature film that
Yes.
you were featured in.
Yes.
And you're also related to, of course, the world famous Mahesh Bhatt.
Yes.
By the way, and your grandmother,
Yes.
from what I understand, acted in over 100 movies, I believe.
Yes.
She was quite, you know, popular.
Yes.
So tell us about her career and a bit of your roots, you know.
Well, my grandmother, her screen name was Purnima Varma, and she had done over 100 films in the black and white era. And well, yeah, I predominantly a film family, although yes, my dad never really got into films. My mom was kind of disconnected from Bollywood to the film industry. I never wanted to be part of the industry. I just never had that as a goal as a child, because most of the people here, they obviously are, they've always wanted to be actors, and they've had that upbringing. But I never had the environment in my house like I was part of a film family. And I was never very close in my childhood years to Mr. Mahesh Bhatt. So yeah, I'd not seen many of my grandmother's films, but yes, I had that much exposure. I remember going on her film set in her last few years when she phased out her career. She had played Sanjay Dutt's grandmother in Naam, and I remember going on the set with her for that shoot, and that was the last film that she did. She quit the films after that.
मुझे तुझसे ज़्यादा तजुर्बा है.
So yes, those were my memories, but I never wanted to be part of the film industry. And through my college years, again, I had various goals. Then Mr. Mahesh Bhatt gave me an offer because he's part of the family. He said that, you know, post-college, why don't you come to my company and work and see the different departments in filmmaking. So I came on board. I went, tried my hand at editing. I became an assistant director on 2 films. And suddenly this offer was made to me, which I didn't take up at that time. I refused it twice. And for some reason he was like, you know, I see an actor in you, although I didn't see an actor in me. And then I started my first feature film. I trained for acting for 2-3 months in an acting school. Yeah, and then the first feature film happened in 2003. We shot for it in 2002, which released in 2003.
अपन का दोस्त बोलता है, सपना देखने का हिम्मत करो, तो जीने का भी हिम्मत करो.
Once you became an actor, of course, it didn't take too long for you to really rise to the top. You became the king of kissing in the Indian cinema. Historically, when you study the evolution of Indian cinema, this is a very interesting period. Tell us about this.
I'm thinking of going to the Guinness Book of World Records. No, I'm just joking. Well, yes, it's Footpath. Obviously, it was a film that got me critical acclaim, but I got noticed in the film, and it was a very difficult character for me to play. It was a very dark film, it was a very gritty film, and for some reasons it didn't do well at the box office. And well, post that, there was another film made, and because the company was trying to revamp and bring out a new taste, new genre of cinema in Bollywood, because you had certain kinds of films, right? In the 90s, and of course that went into the early 2000, 2001. You had family dramas, you had comedies, you had action films, and that's what predominantly Bollywood was known for, always. And this company wanted to revamp, I'm talking about Bhatt Saab's, Mr. Mahesh Bhatt's company, and he made his first film, Murder, not first film, the first erotic thriller that he made, which was directed by Anurag Basu in 2004. And I played the villain in that film.
You were nominated again there for an award.
Yes.
Right.
And well, that somewhere set the kind of image that I later on had, because that was the first time that our cinema had an erotic thriller like that. Very shocking, very bold, had its fair share of criticism. But at the same time, you had this huge audience that came in to watch that film, and that film became a blockbuster overnight. And that somehow became very impactful in kind of steering my career through that decade of becoming a face of a bold Bollywood, a whole new bold Bollywood that was post 2004. And there were a lot of films that were made after that had scenes that required intimacy, had kissing. It was never seen before in our cinema, which is extremely shocking for the media. And it got its fair share of space, media space, and of course the audiences flocked to the theatres to watch these films. And I was, fortunately or unfortunately, the face of that. So that set the stage.
You know, it's interesting from a perspective, if you remember, in the 60s or something around that time, in the late 60s or early 60s or 50s, the censor board was very strict in India. There was no kissing allowed at all. And then the Civil Liberties Union and everybody else, groups were really quarreling and fighting, and by saying, you know, why are you allowing James Bond, you know, Sean Connery to kiss? And that movie gets released in the Indian cinema screens, but whereas Indian heroes were not allowed to kiss, and there was a historical perspective there. But then, so when the censor board changed its mind, and then they allowed, some producers got really carried away. But then the society did not accept that. But the interesting part is that when you did it, people accepted it, and those movies became big hits. Comment on that, because you know it's Bipasha Basu, it was you and Malika Sherawat, and so many others, Kankana and so many others now. You know.
Well, I actually didn't know this new area that we were gonna kind of be dwelling in. I was fairly ignorant. And that became my strength at that time. I think if I was tuned into what cinema wanted me to do, probably I would have been slightly more cautious. But I was not an avid Bollywood film watcher. I've predominantly grown up watching a lot of Western films, Hollywood films. If I had to go back to films that I used to watch from Hindi cinema, they were predominantly Mr. Bachchan's films, Mr. Dilip Kumar's films. And I didn't know that this was a very, very bold step, because I had seen a lot of Hollywood films and I was like, okay, this probably is done. And I did it. And then there was this, obviously there was the criticism that came my way, but then it got accepted. And the censor board, I think at that time kind of revised a lot of things. Yes, most of the films that I did got the certification of an adult film, but it had an audience. And then you had a string of films by other producers and directors that made similar kind of genres of films. So I think it did get its kind of acceptance through my films, because it was, before that there were very tacky kind of films that had eroticism. This was the first time mainstream film with emotions, with drama, with certain intensity, with author-backed characters, and had intimacy. That I think the audience was missing out on before this. So they got, they loved those kind of films. So I think post that, the decade probably obviously had a lot of those films.
You had other outstanding roles that you performed. Once Upon a Time in Mumbai, again you got nominated, and it was a fantastic role that you portrayed in the film.
Zindagi ho to smuggler jaisi. Sari duniya raakh ki tarah niche.
So tell us about some of these outstanding success.
I mean, in an actor's career, obviously you have a lot of films that are landmark films that come out, that set the stage, that probably reinvent you, reset the stage for you. And Once Upon a Time in Mumbai was that one film. Yes, Gangster did well for me. It was more, I guess Gangster was slightly more familiar at that point of time. It was a great story. It had this very devious villain that I was playing in the film that completely turns around in the end, which shocked the audience.
सावन के महीने में अगर नाग को पकड़ना हो तो नागिन को अपने बस में करना.
But I think a film like Jannat and Once Upon a Time in Mumbai was in 2007 very important to kind of reconstruct things for me. When things were reaching a saturation point for me, when the boldness had been redone and done again, I had a string of failures at the box office. This was post 2005.
Every hero has gone through that.
Yes, and I thank those failures because that actually led me to kind of reinvent myself. And thankfully, I had filmmakers to kind of set the stage and make these films with me and believe in me and my talent. So there was a film which was Jannat, which was a very emotional film of a match fixer, cricket match fixer.
राजू भाई हार जीत का क्या भाव है?
England 23-25.
But today, you know, you're all completely, you're trim and fit, and physical fitness has become very important.
Yes.
So tell me about this image, you know.
Well, that's something that I think now our profession requires, that it's become a compulsion for all of us to kind of look in a certain way to take care of ourselves. I actually was, again, very indisciplined in the first few years of my career till 2008, and I think this film, Once Upon a Time in Mumbai, required me to revamp and reinvent, and I had to look in a certain way physically. And you had this new age filmmakers who came and said that I don't want my hero to look a certain way, you have to play a character in a film, and that's very important, and that's what the audience will like, and that will give that distinction to you. So I was told post Jannat to look in a certain way, get the whole six-pack abs, go and train and get a certain physique in 4 months. And I achieved that in 4 months. And yeah, and after that it was never looking back, because I think it's very important, because films, because of a lot of films that have action and stuff, you need to be physically, it's very demanding. For example, a film like Shanghai, post Once Upon a Time, I had to put on a lot of weight, which I had to grow a paunch.
Hello friend, how are you? Fine.
Also a French-based version of that,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Right.
It was a French book, Z, that was made into film back in the day, and very old film. And Dibakar wanted this character to look almost grotesque, very, very eerie-looking, creepy character. For that I had to put on weight, and that was tough. Putting on weight is easy. Losing weight is extremely difficult.
One of your biggest box office grossers was, of course, you and Vidya Balan and Nasiruddin Shah and The Dirty Picture.
Yes.
That, you know, took off really big, $19.8 million or something like that in the box office, I believe.
Yes.
So it was a massive success. So tell me about your role in that film.
Well, it was offered to me again by the producer of Once Upon a Time, Ekta Kapoor, Milan Luthria, the director of the film. After we had worked on Once Upon a Time in Mumbai, which was a huge hit, they had this very exciting script.
It was based on the life story of Silk Smitha.
Silk Smitha, that's right. And a nice, it's wonderful take on the South Indian film industry. They narrated the script to me when the shooting of Once Upon a Time was on, and I was game for that when I heard the script. Very emotional, again, great love story, fantastic characters in it. And it started off as a very small film, because probably it wasn't an art house film, but at the same time it wasn't, you couldn't box it into a mainstream commercial film. So we made it on a very economical budget at that time, and we were like, okay, probably this film will make double of what we invested in it. But it exploded when it reached the cinema halls. People loved the film, and it grossed so much money. We were not expecting that kind of reception for the film. But I think a lot of things worked in the favor. Again, a very fresh palette of the world that was created, the emotions behind it, Vidya's character, my character, the love story. So that, I think, you know, really hit it off with the audiences at that time.
तेरे चाहने वाले ना सामने के 4 रोज में बैठते हैं, पीछे की 40 रोज मेरी है.
You as a hero, you've done so many films already now, and invariably you've done a fabulous job with your songs and you know the picturization of your songs. You know, Rajesh Khanna, Kishore Kumar's voice suited him in those days. For Raj Kapoor, when you look historically of the Indian cinema, Mukesh's voice suited him. Like that, is there a voice that you know you are comfortable with for you to do your lip sync?
You know, it'll be unfair to single out one voice. I've been very, very fortunate with all the songs that have become a rage with every film.
Yeah, you've had lots of big hits, you know.
Yes. For the first 9 to 10 years, we had, in every film, we used to have at least 2 chartbuster tracks, and they became a very important component in my films.
Right.
They had to be great music, and that was a huge pressure on my music directors, because when they used to get my film, they used to work at it probably a lot more, because that became the essential component. If that didn't click, people felt that, you know, Emraan Hashmi has to have great songs, so that, you know, hits a home run with them. So we had great singers come on board, a lot of new singers, a lot of fresh Pakistani talent, Pakistani singers at that time.
Yeah.
So I think all these voices worked for me. So I can't really single out one, but a huge, you know, a lot of music directors got their breaks with my films, and they gave fantastic music.
Do you have any favorites of yours in terms of your own performance on the air with respect to your songs?
But it was more Sufi,
Yeah.
more Sufi songs. I think Pilu is one song which is very close to my
That
heart.
was Mohit Chauhan singing for you.
Yes, in Once Upon a Time in Mumbai.
Right. When a producer or a director approaches you with a subject,
Yes.
how do you decide whether you want to take that role?
Well, it definitely is a very important aspect is the story. The story has to be an emotional journey. It has to somewhere, for me, I feel it should connect with the audience in a certain way, definitely. And then, of course, you're at a certain stage in your career where you feel that, okay, I can't do more of the same. So probably it might be a great story, but it's probably something, a genre that you've kind of dwelled upon in the past. So you move on to something that's fresh and exciting, that's kind of risky, which is very important for reinvention. I think that would come in an actor's career it's become so important to reinvent right now, every 4 to 5 years, because the audience sees you do something, you have to give them a taste of something new, time and again. Or probably in 1 year, do a different genre of film, which is probably perceived as art house, which has a different kind of script, which is fairly realistic. So that's a welcome departure. That might not be for your core audience, but that definitely is very important for creativity to kind of expand with that film. So you bring that back to your mainstream films after that, and something that's fresh comes out of it always. So I think it definitely is the script, active characters, not passive. I've realized in the past, whenever I've played a very passive character, passive in the sense of the way the audience sees that character, the films don't work. You know, a lot of things are kind of connected with things that in my film, the character has to be ambitious, there has to be an intensity, there has to be a conflict, there has to be drama. So all these things are perceived as very active components in my films for characters. So just seeing those things and then deciding upon which film I should be doing.
Emraan, you're now involved in productions that's beyond India. So eventually, if you do international co-productions, do you see a greater role that the Indian film industry will play? Because Indian film industry has no boundaries. Art and culture has no boundaries.
Yes.
Do you think that this could become a tool for audiences in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, that whole subcontinent, to sort of collaborate more together and bring more peace in that part of the world through entertainment?
I guess so. I think a lot of talents now from all these nations are kind of, everyone's working with each other. There are a lot of different crews that are working on a particular project, and that's, I think, because also Indian cinema in the past decade, you've seen it's made great strides. It's become a global market. You've had our actors go and work in Hollywood films. You've had a lot of our actors doing international films, which I think is great. I think it's fantastic. It's definitely a great step forward. And all these countries, they've got a lot of talent. I mean, of course, Bollywood is the biggest film industry after Hollywood, and of course, the number of films, it is the biggest film industry. There's always a need for fresh talent from any one of these countries. So, and for my films, we have had a lot of talent from Pakistan, maybe in the music department, in the acting department. We had my films released in all these countries and do very well. My film Raja Natwarlal has done fantastic business in Pakistan.
किसे मारना है, किसे छोड़ना है, असली तरक्की इसे कहते हैं.
So I think it definitely is a great time for everyone to come together and work on these fantastic projects, and something that will connect with everyone. Because a film like Tigers, I think, just breaks all those boundaries. It is for our subcontinent, but at the same time it's a story of a Pakistani. Of course, it's going to do well there. And it's for a global market because every parent can relate to and identify with this problem. It's a film, like I said, it's an intent, so it somewhere promotes breastfeeding. It goes against these multinational corporations that kind of constantly promote things like infant formula milk, which isn't very good. So it's a controversial film which will obviously break all these barriers.
In terms of our tribute to 100 years of Indian cinema, you're probably one of the most qualified people because cinema runs for 3 generations in your blood.
Yes, it does.
So tell me, how has the film industry changed in India between your grandmother's days and your present day?
Through those films, through that era, there's always, cinema is always reflecting what's happening in society. So it's ever changing. Every decade there's something new happening. Your socio-economic status, your political problems, or your the situation in your country, that's reflected in cinema. That's given birth to different characters. Mr. Bachchan's Angry Young Man was it reflected what was happening in society at that point of time in the 70s and the 80s.
हम भी वो हैं जो कभी किसी के पीछे नहीं खड़े होते.
You had me as a face in this because it was a bold new step towards the younger generation that was willing to see films like that. They were exposed in the late 90s and early 90s to these different channels that had come, like Star and westernized channels and western movies that were releasing there. So they woke up to that, and then you had these kind of films. Of course, every decade has that kind of change that's exciting in its own way. I'm very excited to see how the next few years or the next decade, what kind of cinema, what it emerges into. But I think this is the great step forward. Having actors, again, work in international films, bringing those films here, having them released in places like Canada and America, back home in India, and just seeing all these kind of diverse subjects and characters that kind of expands your mind.
That's fantastic. Obviously, you've gone beyond the call of duty in terms of even presenting important social values. God bless you, and I wish you all the best.
I was really impressed with the studio you have here, with all the equipment, with the workforce, and a team that works together in making something so brilliant. The kind of content that you have, and for the market here, for the audience, I think it's fantastic, and a huge congratulations. And it was a huge learning experience coming here and seeing all these things that you've set up over here.
Very kind of you. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you in the program with us.
Thank you so much.
All the best.
Thank you.